The next session is also on AI, understanding documents, understanding structured and unstructured, semi-structured documents with the help of document understanding, which is driven by AI. Let's see what we have as new capabilities, and we have Alex and Tony to take us through this session. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Tejas. We're excited today to tell you a little bit more around some of the new capabilities that we have as part of Document Understanding for 21.4. First, the mandatory safe harbor slide. Of course, this may include forward-looking statements, and we, of course, cannot guarantee future results. So let's remind everybody, when we talk about document understanding, we're referring to the entirety of the framework here, really around things from loading taxonomy to digitization, classification, extraction, and of course, exporting of those results to the rest of your automation workflow. Now, for today, we're going to focus a lot of our attention on these areas around extraction, training of machine learning extraction models, and validation to do retraining of those models as well. So for 21.4, there are really three big areas that we want to highlight as new areas of investment and capability. The first is around field level anchors for our form extractor experiences. This is using computer vision based approaches to define specific anchors for each individual field. The second is around pre-trained models for machine learning models. And we have a couple new ones that we're bringing out to the market. One around passports, one around ID cards, and another around contracts. And finally, we'll talk about more of what we're doing around data manager and the ability to go and train and customize your machine learning models. Alex will go through this in much greater detail and show you a demonstration of this as well. So let's dive first into the field level anchors. For this, what we're doing is we've actually enhanced both the form extractor as well as the intelligent form extractor to take into consideration field-specific information in addition to the page-level anchors that we've had since the last few releases. If you look at this image on the right, what we'll see is there's a blue box here, which actually represents where you want the robot to go and look for that specific field to be extracted. Now we're giving you the ability to go and define anchors relative to that box as well. So if you look at this field here for employer identification number, you'll see that it's highlighted in dark green. And what that means is it's actually identified as a primary anchor for that field in blue that we want to go and extract. Now, in addition to the primary anchor, we also have secondary anchors that we've defined as well. And you can see this creates almost a spider web image. But what this does is these other anchors in lighter green help make sure we're finding the correct primary anchor. Now, the benefit of this approach is this, of course, works in conjunction with the page level anchors. So you can even see on the screen here, there are a few other anchors like partnership here or date down here that have been defined as page level anchors. These will work together. And now when this particular blue field, if this moves around a little bit, you can actually still find this information because we can use the field level anchors to go and find the correct field. So we do believe this will give you a bit more flexibility in terms of having minor variations in your templates. Of course, you can always use any of these links below, such as our forum post or our documentation page, to go and get additional information on this specific feature and also a step-by-step guide on how to go and implement this. The next feature is around one of the pre-trained models that we're bringing out in this release, and this is really for passports. This is a model that we've heard many requests for, specifically for know your customer types of processes or even employee onboarding processes. This is something that we've actually created as a pre-trained model for general passports, international, including diplomatic, military, as well as shipping passports. So not necessarily specific to any one country. We expect that this will work for a majority of passports because most passports we found have actually a combination of local languages as well as English on them as well. And of course, this is customer retrainable using Data Manager and AI Center. On the right, we show some of the fields that we have pre-trained out of the box. But of course, with Data Manager, you can go ahead and customize these or retrain these or add other fields as necessary. The next model that we are bringing out as part of this release is one for ID cards. You can see from some of the fields on the screen here that there are some similarities with the passport model, but this has been trained specifically around different forms of identification. In places like the US, these are commonly driver's licenses, but we also have made sure to include other forms of identification from other regions around the world, specifically for Europe, India, Australia, and Hong Kong. Like the passport model, this is also customer retrainable using Data Manager and AI Center. The final model I want to talk about is one that we're bringing out in preview, which is one for legal contracts. You can see from the table on the right, quite a few different fields that we've pre-trained as part of this. And think of this model as helping you extract out specific information, pieces of information from these contracts, or clauses in some cases. Now, this is a little bit different than some of these other models. Many of you know from these types of documents, this is actually what we would normally think of as a fully unstructured document. And indeed, behind the scenes, this is actually a different model architecture that we're trying here that is really focused around unstructured. As a result, today we would actually ask you to sign up for access to this via our insider program at insider.uipath.com. And this is not customer retrainable at this point in time, although we do plan to add that functionality in a later release. During the preview period, we are willing to work with select customers to go and evaluate the efficacy of this model, and perhaps even work with you to go and develop a more customized version of this model. This is focused on English language right now and will be delivered via cloud, but will be open to all community and enterprise document understanding users. And with that, let me actually hand this over to Alex and have him take you over the machine learning model training process as well as Data Manager. Thanks, Alex, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tony. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Kabuz. I'm a product manager for Document Understanding AI at UiPath. And I'm going to be describing the ML model automatic retraining process, which is one of the most frequently asked for features in our document understanding framework, which is the ability to automatically retrain document understanding extraction models using data fed back from the RPA automation and specifically from the validation station. So this slide summarizes the flow of this process. It all starts by training a first version, a V1 of your machine learning model using Data Manager to create a training data set. You export that training data set into AI Center, where you use the AI Center training and evaluation pipelines to train and deploy an ML skill with that machine learning model. That is then invoked as part of an RPA workflow using the machine learning extractor activity to integrate into a business process. Now, machine learning models are never 100% accurate. And in those cases, in those rare cases where there may be pieces of information that it does not extract correctly, or it has a low confidence level, that piece of information is directed to a validation station for manual validation. This is where the critical part happens, because this information that is generated by the human, by the manual validation, can be used to retrain and continuously improve the model. And the way this happens is through an additional activity, the machine learning trainer activity, which directs the data to AI Center again for retraining. It is sent to an AI Center data set where Data Manager prepares it in the right format for a training pipeline, which then generates the next version of the ML skill, the next version of the extraction model. So this is where the loop is closed. And as we repeat this cycle periodically, maybe potentially weekly or monthly, you have the guarantee that your machine learning model always stays up to date with the data that is flowing through your business process. Now, let me cut over to my demo so I can show you how it works. Okay, so here we are in AI Center as part of Automation Cloud. we have a AI Center project, demo project. And the first step is to create a data labeling session. We're calling it demo and attaching it to a data set. Now, this data set is a really, really critical piece because everything revolves around the data. It's called data science for a reason. This is where the robot sends the data from the validation station. It's where the data manager picks it up and transforms it into the format that a training pipeline can use. And then the training pipeline picks it up also from here and then trains a machine learning model, which can be deployed in AI Center. So we'll see this data set again later on in the demo. Okay, so I've created a data manager session. It's already available. And I'm opening it now. Okay, the first step is to configure the OCR. We strongly recommend using our proprietary OCR engine, which supports all Latin script-based languages, including all major European languages and even some non-European languages like Indonesian. The API key comes from your license page on the automation cloud. The next step is to import some data. In this case, we'll import some already labeled data in the interest of time. It's some W9 forms. This is a very convenient way to move labeled data from one data manager session to another session. So it's just a small batch in this case, under 30 documents. So it detected that it's a data set that is already labeled. Gives me some a summary of the number of pages, and it proceeds with importing them one by one. As it does so, it displays the progress information, the names of the files, as each of them is imported into the data manager session. Okay, so now they have been imported, and the first thing to notice is that the list of fields has been imported along with the documents, and each field has a hotkey associated with it. This is the hotkey that is used to label those fields on the document. For example, name has N attached to it, and so on. Now, some of these hotkeys may be hard to remember, so a very convenient feature is that you can have two key hotkeys. Like, for example, for account numbers, it would be AN, the first letters. And it also makes it possible to have a very large number of fields, up to 300. So the way you label is you select a box like this. You can remove the label. You can add the label back using the hotkey. Another very important feature that you should be aware of is the ability to create test sets. Test sets are very important when you do automatic retraining, because as the model gets retrained periodically, automatically, you may want to compare the accuracy from one iteration to another. And this requires having a test set so that you can compare apples to apples. And this is how you create those test sets. You check this, make this a test set checkbox, like I just showed here, and the data is imported as a test set. You can then see a summary of the data that's available in your data manager using this dropdown. You can see that I imported a batch with 28 files and another batch with a single file. You can see if you have deleted documents, which you can undelete if you want to, and if there's test documents or labeled or unlabeled documents. So that's a very convenient way. Another thing to notice is that you have our OCR has the ability to detect checkboxes, and you have therefore the ability to extract these multiple choice type fields. And the way you do it is you label the value of the text, not the checkbox itself, because this is the value of interest. What you're interested in here is, for example, the type of entity. So in this case, it's a limited liability company. That is a value of interest in your business process. So that's what you label. And then the machine learning model learns to recognize that by learning the association with the checked checkbox. Now, a similar capability can be used to also do signature detection in a very similar way. Basically, you label the text right next to the signature whenever the signature is present. If the signature is not present, you don't label anything. And if you provide a few dozen examples of each of those, like maybe 40, 50 examples with a signature and 40, 50 examples without a signature, and you label those fields when the signature is present, the machine learning model has a way to look at the pixels and recognize when that signature is present. So this is a very handy capability. Now, let's go on to the automatic retraining. You click the export button and you open this export dialog where you can either download the files or export to AI Center. In the schedule view, you can set up a schedule, like for example, every Saturday night, let's say. Let's choose next Saturday, so June 19th. I want to set up a training every Saturday night at 10 p.m., let's say. So I define the time here, 10 p.m. And I want it to run every week, so every 7 days. So I have configured this. If I save this, automatic export will happen every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Okay, going back to AI Center, I see that I have a machine learning package, and in order to define the retraining pipeline, I have to choose the package, choose the version, and this is a really critical point. I select the demo retraining dataset. This is where the data is going to arrive from a validation station, and also I can select an evaluation dataset in order to have a good metric. This environment variable is very important. It's crucial that you set it to true. This will tell the machine learning model that it needs to automatically retrain using the latest data. So I can set this up for Saturday night. I will set this up for 11:30. The reason I set it up for 11:30 is because I want to leave some time for the export to finalize. Sometimes if it's a large amount of data, it can take some time to export the data. So between 10 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. should be enough that the export will finalize. Okay, I'm done creating the pipeline, and it will run every Saturday, 11:30 p.m. Now, the next step is to look at the RPA side of things. How does a workflow look which connects into this retraining loop? So here's a very simple sample workflow in UiPath Studio. You have the present validation station activity. This can also be a create validation action activity if you prefer to do it in Action Center using a web interface. And the output of that is fed into this machine learning extractor trainer activity. Very importantly, it's pointing to the same data set that we saw before. Again, everything revolves around the data set. So you select it from the dropdown, and as you run this workflow, the data will continuously be fed into that data set, and every Saturday night, you will have the ability to get a continuously improved model. To learn more about document understanding and AI Center, there's a number of great resources at your disposal. First, you can go and try it out by logging into our automation cloud and using this link and requesting an enterprise trial. Also, we have the UiPath Academy with a number of great courses. There's a course on document understanding that will go into everything that I described in a lot more detail. For all the technical details, you can go to the official documentation at docs.uipath.com/document understanding. And of course, for all the questions you may have, please go ahead and ask all the questions on the forum. We have a vibrant community eager to help you out in your automation journey. And thank you very much. Tejas, back to you.
Thank you, Alex. Obviously, one of the burning questions is how do we improve the accuracy of ML extractor?
That's a great question, Tejas. Yeah, there's entire teams and billions of dollars dedicated to answering that question, but let me try to answer. So in data science, everything revolves around the data. Just like I said, in our product, the data set is in the center. So it's super critical to be very careful about how you choose the data, and it has to be good quality labeled. You have to make sure that when you label the data in Data Manager, it is what you actually intend the model to extract, because it will just learn nothing more, nothing less than exactly what you give it as training data. And we are planning on a number of enhancements in Data Manager to help people do that. But there are things like make sure that you don't have some types of documents overrepresented, like hundreds and hundreds of invoices, let's say, from the same vendor, because that will not only not help the model, but it may actually hurt it. And also make sure that all the fields that you care about are well represented, that you have at least a few dozen samples of each field that you care about. If you have just a few samples of a given field, like some obscure amount or something, then it's unlikely the model will be able to learn it. So again, the choice of data and the quality of the labeled data is the critical point in getting a good result in your extraction. And one last thing I would mention is also the OCR plays a key role. So always keep in mind that a lot of times the issues are due not to the extraction itself, but to the OCR, which is an input. And you may try different OCR engines. Our proprietary OCR engine is a great choice for European languages. However, there may be situations in which documents are extremely noisy, extremely messy, and potentially other OCR engines may do a better job. So we are an open platform, and you have a choice of a number of different engines. So,
thank you for the detailed answer, Alex. I think it is important for our developers to know that. But I think I'm getting a bit greedy here. What are the next set of predefined ML models that we can expect in the future?
Yeah, that's another great question. This is an area that we're investing heavily in the next period. We plan on increasing the number of pre-trained out-of-the-box models quickly over the next 6 months. The next couple of models that are coming out are for W9 forms and also for W2 forms. And just this tax form is going to become a theme. We'll invest in covering as much of this area as possible, and not just for the US, but also for our other regions like Europe, India, Australia, and East Asia. So this is you're going to definitely hear a lot more news in this area. It's top priority for us, because we know that it makes the lives of developers a lot easier when they have something to start from. It's a leg up. They're not starting from scratch. They're starting from something that already maybe gets 80% or 90% of what they need, and they need to do a lot less work to just get it over the line to whatever, accuracy 95, 98 accuracy that they need on their particular business automation.
Thank you, Alex. And Tony, an extension of the same question to you. What do we expect in 21.10? What are some key features that you are excited about?
Yes, Tejas, that's a great question. I think there's actually quite a bit that we're working on down the roadmap for 21.10. I'll highlight just a couple areas, because of course we will always be looking at improvements across the board, across the entire part of the framework, from things like additional deployment models for things like our native OCR engine to be able to actually run that inside the robot, all the way to continual improvement of things like our handwriting efficacy by doing things like implementing a dictionary into that. But one area I'm particularly excited about, and is a big area of investment for UiPath as a whole, and also for document understanding, is really focusing more on things like Studio Web and the citizen developer experience. So there's a couple features that we're actually bringing out as part of that enhanced experience. One is really more of a design time experience that we think of as really focused for that Studio Web experience. And so the idea here is that you can actually go in and actually start to run a document understanding workflow using Studio Web. A very simple wizard type of experience to go in and be able to configure your workflow. And Alex mentioned some of the pre-trained models that we're bringing out. Of course, we're going to continue to invest in that area and bring out more pre-trained models. But this design time experience will also allow you to easily tap into all of those pre-trained models and create a quick automation just using Studio Web. So that's a big area that we're pretty excited about. Another goes with that theme as well, which is really an experience that we're thinking of as a Forms AI experience. And what this is rather than you configuring the templates and configuring and necessarily training the model yourself, we can actually go and create that template creation process behind the scenes for you. So what you'll do is you'll just give us some examples of the types of documents, and we'll actually use this wizard-like experience to go in and define and design the template behind the scenes for you. So that's something that we believe can work in these kind of medium variance scenarios. So if you think about true low variance scenarios, that's a good form-based use case. If you think about high variance scenarios, then what Alex has shown you earlier today with machine learning works really, really well. Something a little bit in between is where we think Forms AI will actually be able to have its sweet spot. So those are just a couple highlights for you, Tejas. Obviously more to come with 2110, and I'm sure we'll cover more of those in future sessions as well.
Thank you, Alex and Tony. I think this is one of the most exciting sessions. A lot of people want to understand document understanding and the new capabilities. There are more sessions to come in the afternoon in the breakout sessions. I'm sure developers are going to join that. Now, while we are here, please kindly continue to share posts on Instagram, on social media network, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere, but use the hashtag UiPath DevCon. Thank you. I will see you in the next one.